in Kona, yeah.
Oh, Kona. Okay.
Yeah.
And,
In the
first of all,
coffee fields.
in the coffee field. Oh.
Yeah. My mother used to pick coffee while she was pregnant
Wow.
with me.
So
Yeah.
you must love coffee.
No, not really. Yeah.
First of all, can you tell me your full name,
Yeah,
including
it's in Korean it's Deborah,
Deborah?
Deborah, Eleanor. Yeah, Eleanor is my English name.
Eleanor
The
Deborah.
teacher in the school that I went to in no, not Kona. Hawaii gave me that name, and my Korean name is Deborah. Yeah, Deborah.
And so your
Yeah.
maiden name is Kim. Kim.
My maiden name is Kim. Yes,
And then
and
married
Kiao. I married a Chinese.
Chinese. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
the best man on earth.
Oh yeah, that's
He was such a kind man.
oh, that's
He
right.
really loved my mother. She did, Eddie, my
Your
husband. So the oldest and the youngest.
Oh yeah. What's your earliest memories of your mother or your father or father?
When I was, I think I was in the 6th grade.
Uh-huh.
My father was sick.
Ah.
So,
So you were about 10 years old, 11 years old that time?
yeah. And we were having help from social service. They gave us so much a week, and my mother was supposed to, you know, take care of the family with that. It must have been that I was older than that, because prior to that, I used to go to this dress shop and work as a cleanup girl. And then when I got to the 7th grade, social service decided that they're not going to help us anymore, except they gave the family milk. And I was working as a maid. So I worked as a maid until I got married and took care of the family that way. I used to give my mother all that I earned, and she was able to take care of the family. So I really didn't have any childhood at all. I was working all the time. My mother used to always say, "You're the big sister, 형님, and the father of the family." And I really looked more like my father than anybody else. So the old people used to say, "Oh, 김수찬 잃어버리면 데브라를 in other words, put her up front, and you'll be sure to find him." So I must have looked very much like him, although I wouldn't be able to tell.
I forgot to ask you what your birth date was.
February 5th, just passed.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah, 1915.
1915.
So that makes me 91, yeah.
Wow. Very good for 91.
Oh, yeah, that's what they all say. And I feel good, you know.
That's great, yeah. I mean,
And I'm
you have all these
very lucky. I'm very lucky.
You went to school in Hawaii or Kona? Hawaii?
No, Honolulu.
You
My
went
father
also-
moved over when I was when I was about 6 or 7. Yeah,
What school did you go to?
Kailani.
Oh, Kailani.
Yeah.
And after that, you went to McKinley?
After that, I went to Washington
Oh, Washington.
because I was working Howley House
Okay.
in Manoa,
In Manoa.
and that's the closest. Yeah.
your sister Anna talked about that you spoke Korean.
Yeah.
So you being the oldest, your Korean must be very, very good.
Oh, I'm not that good. Anna is the best.
Oh yeah?
Yeah,
But
she-
you talked with your parents in Korean?
yeah. But thing is, there was a time when one of my sisters was working
Oh, yeah,
in
yeah.
Korea, at the army installation. So Anna and I went over to visit with her. The old folks over there would understand me very, very well. But the way I talk and the way they understood. But the young folks, no. Because, I went to a department store and I asked them where the tukan was. That's the way we knew, toilet. Huh?
It's a different word.
Yeah.
화장실.
They didn't know what I was talking about. They said, finally somebody said, I said, now, Ojun. She said, oh, 화상질. So she showed me. See, I just couldn't understand.
And you grew up in a Korean camp in the Big
Yeah,
Island?
Palama.
No, in Palama.
Yeah.
So you moved to Palama when you were in the 5th grade, 6th grade?
No.
Earlier.
Oh, let me think now. Seems like such a long time ago. Yeah. No, I think I was in the 1st grade.
1st grade, wow.
Yeah.
Can you describe the area in Palama during that time?
It was right next door to the first house we moved into when we came from Hawaii was in the now Kukui Plaza area. And we stayed there just a short while. Then we moved to Palama, where our landlord was Korean. Lee, Mr. Lee and Mrs. Lee. They were very, very kind to my mother. My father passed away when I was 19.
When you were 19, so you
And prior to that, I worked all the time
all the time just to
Yeah.
help the family.
as a maid, yeah. And then when McKinley High School had where you go for cafeteria management training,
Oh yeah, yeah.
I joined with that. And Caroline Edwards, she was the head of the Department of Vocation or something, where she took care of all the cafeteria managers. She became very interested in me, my background as a maid and everything. And she said, you know, Eleanor, cafeteria managers, you can train them to be cafeteria managers. But what you have is something that is inside of you that cannot be trained. And so what I would like you to do is go to school and I'll sponsor you as a student at UH.
Oh, wow.
So she gave me a school close by, Manoa School, and I would have to go to school part-time
And then work.
and work.
Yeah.
And as luck would have it, I had all my papers and everything ready, but I became pregnant. So I had to give that up. And while I was pregnant, she moved me, after that, she moved me when I told her that I was pregnant, to the OCD canteen, during the war. 1944, 45. So I was at Kaumano OCD canteen. Stayed there until after the war. And after the war, St. Louis High School, where the OCD canteen was, had gotten uh, the contract for OC canteen. And after the war was over, what they did was that they opened up their own cafeteria. And so all the brothers that were at St. Louis, I used to feed them dinner at Kahumana School. And then the day students came back. So actually I was at St. Louis for about almost 40 years. I retired at 68.
68?
Yeah. And took me quite a while to get used to being retired, you know.
Family just stuck together.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, we really did, you know. My husband used to say, oh, if one family pangokui loud enough, then the other sister will hear it, you know, yeah. Yeah, we used to stick together like bread and butter. I guess that's how we survived. My family, all of my siblings, we all stick together, and it's due to my mother's strength. My mother's strength. She was unusual only daughter, you know, and I know that I am where I am today. Yeah, some from my own doing, but a lot has to do with the strength of my mother. I really admired her. She lived till she was 89, so I'm outliving her.
When you were growing up, what kind of things did you do for fun? I mean, what did
For
you do
fun?
with your sisters and stuff? You didn't socialize?
No,
Not at all.
no.
And so you caught the trolley to work,
Oh, yeah.
to school and stuff?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
What
No, as far as my schooling was concerned, I didn't have to catch the trolley. The people I used to work for used to drop me off.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
and they let me pack lunch from their house, you know. And one house I remember so vividly is they had a huge avocado tree in their yard. And from my maid's quarters, I could hear it falling, you know. So the next morning I'd go out and pick it all up and bring it in my room. And every Sunday when I was off, I used to take it home, you know,
To Palama.
to Palama. And she finally saw me doing that. So she said, don't you ever do that again. That's just like stealing, you know. So I said, oh, okay. So I had to stop. But I was thinking that's mean of her because, you know,
It's going to waste.
nobody's going to eat it.
Yeah.
But my family used to love it. So.
And they needed
But
it.
that's the way it is. That's the way it
So
is.
that was at the Holly House.
At, I guess the only social thing that I can talk of with my sister Mary, the one right below me, that's in the care home, Korea care home, was going to CE, Christian Endeavor, at the church. That's about it.
So church was a very important part of your life.
Yeah.
Did you go to the services every Sunday?
No.
No.
Just, yeah, service we used to stay, but Christian Endeavor is the thing that we were very active in. My grandfather is a world-renowned priest
Yes.
from the leper, home. Yeah.
In Korea.
And he is the one that this communist boy shot his son.
His son. So your uncle.
Yeah, my uncle. And instead of prosecuting him, he adopted him and trained him, and he's now a priest.
Himself, right now.
Right, a priest in Korea. Yeah.
Do you know his name?
My grandfather,
Your grandfather's name? Do you know?
Son Yang Won.
Sung Young.
Son Yang Won, yeah. I
And
think.
then, do you remember the?
No, I don't.
Oh, yeah.
I don't.
And your sister was
But
saying.
there's a book about
Yeah, I was just
him,
going to ask you.
something about the seed, and I think my sister Sarah has the book.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's taking Korean now at UH. She's retired, and her son Stephen is very interested in Korea. He goes. He just retired this year, and he went for a month's trip to Korea.
And so your sister Sarah, what's her married name now?
Sarah, her married name is Mrs. Stanley Kim. The son has looked into so many of the family's graveside and everything, He went to that place where they built this huge memorial church or whatever for my uncle.
If there's anything Korean about you, what would that be?
If there's anything Korean about me, I don't know.
Is it do you love your Korean food maybe, or do you love Korean food? Or?
Well, I like it, but I don't really love it,
You consider yourself more local than anything else.
Oh yeah, yeah.
When you're growing up, when someone asked you, "What are you?" you would say, "I'm Korean."
Oh yeah, definitely. I am Korean. I'm a true blue Korean.
True blue.
The only thing is that I tell everybody I'm married to Chinese, so my children are Japanese.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to this day, what would you say? You say you're still Korean, but you're,
Oh, yeah.
but you're American also.
Yeah.
But you're
I'm
local.
an American Korean. My mother was a very, very strong person and very, very wise. My husband is a firm believer in having family, So we used to have family over. I used to have family over Christmas and New Year's. And he had to blow firecrackers, Chinese,
style, yeah.
And he loved to go and buy dim sum, and eat it New Year's. And we used to eat tteokguk.
Tteokguk. Oh.
Tteokguk, yeah.
So you make a good tteokguk.
I don't know about good, but tteokguk, chicken soup, yeah. And I used to always have like ham and turkey and prime rib, yeah. And the whole family. And Sarah's sons always remember those days when they used to come to my house for celebrations for the holidays, yeah. And they all talk about the prime rib. Yeah.
My name is Anna Ki Sim Kim, maiden name Kim, surname Kim, Pak, P-A-H-K. I was born November 17, 1918. That makes me 87 going on 88.
Wow, you're so young. And when were you born?
In Hawaii,
Oh, big
the
island.
island of Hawaii. To the best of my recollection, my father was an orphan, and he migrated, this is just hearsay now, my father migrated from what we were told, to the best of my recollection, from Tibet to Korea,
Wow.
and then he was among those who came to Hawaii recruited for plantation work. He was recruited for coffee plantation work. Okay, my mother has a history too. Her history is much, much more interesting than any of ours.
Oh, what's your name of your dad? Your father?
Kim Soo-chun, Soochun. And when he came to Hawaii as a coffee plantation worker, how we would have to figure is, okay, my older sister was born in I was born 1918, she was born 1917, 16, 15. And she was conceived soon after my mother came over as a picture bride. So you do some math and you can figure out, pretty much when my father came in as a plantation worker. And then, those days, they brought in picture brides for the men who worked on the plantations as bachelors, right? They had to keep the bachelors happy. So they brought women from Korea whose parents thought their daughters would have a better life in Hawaii. And the way my mother said was, her parents cried when they sent her to Hawaii, but the promise, the lure of gold on the streets in Hawaii made them send my mother here. She wept and her parents wept when she came here. She came from Busan. Her name was Bong, B-O-N-G, Y-U-E-N, Son, S-O-H-N.
Oh, son.
Son Bong. So they used to call it Son Bong Yun. And she came from a background of Presbyterian ministers.
Oh.
Her father was a minister, her brothers were ministers, and there's even a story written about the father.
You know, when you're growing up, what was the language in Hong Kong? You spoke Korean, and we were talking earlier, and you spoke very good Korean.
That's because my mother lived with me for 10 years. And then I went to Korean school.
Oh, you went to Korea? Where? In Hawaii?
No, in Honolulu.
Honolulu.
The Korean school, Kugohekyo. Kugohekyo was where the Korean care home is now.
Ah.
I went to
Off of
Kugohekyo.
Louis Street.
Yes. I went to Kugohekyo, and I even taught for a little while, because there were no teachers, right? I taught the little ones for a little while. And I refreshed my Korean before I went to Korea for the first time.
That's great.
Yeah.
And so among your sisters like that, you spoke English or Korean?
Spoken English and English. Korean, we spoke only to my mother, because she wasn't...
And not your father?
My father passed away when he was 89. He was an invalid. He had tuberculosis, and he was in and out of the IA hospital. And I still remember the tenement building that we lived in. It was quarantined.
And where was this?
Palama. We lived right next to the Palama fire station on North King Street.
Oh, and the building is still there.
Yes. And I went to Kailani School when we migrated. Kailani, when we migrated from Hawaii to Honolulu, thinking that perhaps my father would find better care and be able to find a better means of support. But we eventually ended up with welfare. Those days we called it welfare, now they call it social services,
Social
right?
services, yeah.
Euphemism.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you folks, it sounds like you folks went through a lot of struggle.
Oh, very, very.
And you had 7 sisters altogether.
there were 7 of us. I'm one of the 7, so I'm...
And which one are you?
Okay, I'm number 3.
Number 3.
Yeah. You're going to interview Eleanor. She was number 1. Number 2 is Mary Lee. She's in the Korean care home.
Oh, okay.
I'm number 3. Number 4 was such a tragic, tragic life. She was number 4. Then number 5 is Sarah.
So that's why my mom knows her.
Yeah.
Your
Then
friends.
after Sarah is Nodi, and she just very recently in March went into the Korean care home. And then Sally is the youngest.
Yeah.
Back and forth from the Eye Hospital. And Sally was conceived. You know how much my mother wept? 난 부끄러워, she said. 7 children, 7 daughters.
You know, your family is actually very famous, right? Because we were talking earlier, but you being
Famous or infamous?
Famous. My mom had so much praise about your family. She said that you talapuja, you know. And can you kind of talk about that, growing up in a family of all daughters?
Well, because my father passed away so young after being an invalid so long, I still remember the funeral services then, which was in, I don't know what year, where the tradition was that we had to keep all-night vigil over, next to the coffin.
Was this a Korean tradition?
Custom, yeah.
Custom. And can you kind of describe what happened?
We all lined up alongside the casket.
The casket. And how old were you at that time?
Maybe 10, 9 or 10. It was horrible. It was horrible. You know, the mortuary was dark and cold, and they had cement floors, and that was necessary because the body was preserved, right? And then you'd hear people, ooh, cry. I thought I was going crazy. But you know, the kindest thing that I still recall somebody doing for the family was this Korean man who later was our landlord. He went to a chop suey house and he brought a big pot of wonton men. And it was something we had never had before in our lives. And they were moaning and groaning, all the harmonies, and the women were moaning and groaning. 어떻게 할까, 어떻게 할까. You know why? Because my mother was she was a widow with 7 daughters. And they were moaning and groaning about what was going to happen to us. And that was understandable, right? Eventually we ended up welfare, but my oldest sister, Eleanor, and my second sister, those days, weren't even allowed to continue their education after their 6th grade. They had to go to work. And what kind of work could you do with no training? Yeah. They worked as what we called Hawai house, as maids. And by luck, I guess it was. I still remember they took me to the welfare office. She sat me down at the table and made me do, later on I found out it was ink spot test, Rorschach, that test. And gave me a so-called intelligence test to determine whether I was a good candidate to continue on to high school. Terrible things they did to us when we were on welfare. They even came and examined our garbage pails. And when I was going to Kailani school, I didn't forget. These are things I never forgot. Because they gave us free lunches. It cost only 5 cents, 10 cents. But because they gave us free lunch, they, meaning the state of Hawaii, we weren't a state then, territory of Hawaii gave us free lunches because we were on welfare. Our lunch break was shortened to allow us to run around the school campus picking up the tin plates and returning it to the cafeteria. was terrible. They don't do things like
Oh,
that.
yeah, yeah. And you know, it's like they really took advantage of your situation.
Not only us, all
Yeah.
those on welfare.
Sure.
They made us walk from Palama Fire Station all the way to River Street to get a brown bag of groceries, Thanksgiving. They don't do those things anymore. So I used to take my younger sister and we used to go and pick up one bag she carried and one bag
Which
I
younger
carried.
sister is this?
The one that died.
Oh,
Because she was right below me.
I see.
And during that time, my older sister, Eleanor, and the sister below her had to work as, maids in holly houses, what we called holly houses, to support the family. And then when I graduated from high school, oh, you should see my graduation dress.
What high school is this?
McKinley.
Oh, McKinley.
Graduated from high school, and all during my high school years, I had to work as a schoolgirl at Howley House. I still remember that. In exchange for our board and room, they paid me, I think, $2.50 or $3 a week. I vowed I'd never be poor. I vowed.
Well, after that hardship like that,
I vowed.
Your,
That's not half of it.
Your mother being...
She washed nurses' uniforms at Palama Settlement.
Wow.
And I used to carry the uniforms at Shared Laundry all the way from Palama to Palama Settlement, get a stool from where they had the stool, because I was tiny, and hang it up for the nurses in their lockers. I laugh out, kigameki, what we had to go through.
Your mom must have had a very strong character to be able to...
She was strong. She was a matriarch.
Matriarch.
Yeah. And we, because of our nature, we really honored my mother. We really honored my mother. That's the reason why the few dollars we earned, we used to bring home to my mother. She lived until 89. She went to the Korean care home when she was 81. She had a big stroke. She had a massive stroke.
You were growing up, what kind of things did you do for fun? Do you remember?
Oh, for fun. We never had a childhood. But I remember one of the things that we used to do was go to Kailani school. And there used to be a pod, about so big. And if you peel the pod, it was glutinous.
Oh.
So we used to get that gluten, put it on top of tin cans, use it as stilts and walk. Yeah. Do you know, I sewed all of our clothes from when I went to intermediate school. I went to Kalakaua and I learned homemaking, right? And I learned a little sewing, right? My mother bought a boat of Indian head, one color now, and I still remember the purple. And I used to make clothes for all of us, all the same style. The only thing that differentiated with it was I learned how to smock. And the style was round neck, gathered, and I smocked. And the smocking was all different embroidered thread, colored thread. And so I used to sew for the whole family, and I even made wedding gown, the whole bridal outfit for Sally and Nodi. I think if I went to school, I'd be a fashion designer.
Did your parents talk to you about what was going on in Korea?
Very little, except, as I say, my mother came from a family of ministers.
Yeah.
And one of her brothers was killed by the Kongsangdam, that's the communists. And her father, who is the father of the boy who was killed, murdered,
This is in Busan, yeah?
yeah, forgave that the murderer and adopted that murderer as his own son. There's a book written about it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
In
The
Korean?
seed must fall. No, in English.
The seed-
It was a minister who wrote the book
Okay.
because it was so unusual and, you know, for proselytizing too, right?
Yeah.
That here this minister forgave a murderer of his son and raised him up as his own. So, okay, my mother told us about Korea. Not much. We were all too busy getting food in our bellies and a roof over our heads. And even my children, the way they grew up, yeah?
Your children.
Yeah. And I see how they raise their children now. It's a wonder they turned out as good as they did.
What you gave
By the
us
grace
all
of God.
opportunities, right?
By the grace of God. Because I grew up so poor, I made up my mind I wasn't going to be poor. So even with my boys, even if I had to borrow the money and I was always in the red with the credit union, I was their favorite customer. I sent them all the way to college. And they all graduated from college.
Among what kinds of children did you grow up with? You grew up with your sisters, of
Oh,
course.
the same with us. But they were all financially, economically better than we were.
Were they all Koreans?
Yeah, we had a camp and there was, Korean guy. Do you know Robert Chang, the circuit court judge?
Yeah, oh, I heard them.
Yeah. He lived downstairs of us. And Dr. Moses came, he was a dentist. They had 7 boys.
7
They
boys?
lived downstairs
Oh.
of us too.
They had 7 boys and you had 7 girls. Wow, that sounds like a
I
movie.
know. So, yeah. So then we had another Korean family. And my sister was just talking about her. They kind of remember me from school, but I don't remember them too much. But they lived in the same camp, and the landlord was Korean. We lived in the same camp. So in the camp we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Koreans.
How did you, when you were young,
How young?
I guess in your teens, or if someone asked you, what are you? What would you say?
What am I?
You would have said you're Korean?
Oh, definitely.
Not American. You're Korean.
No, we wouldn't have said American Korean. We'd just say I'm Korean.
And then now, what would you? How would you describe yourself?
I'd say I'm Korean. My ethnicity is Korean, but I'm an American citizen, born in America. That's what I would say. Oh, do you know my mother left all of us when I was 12, and I had to take care of all my younger sisters. She went to Korea. She stayed over a year. That was after my father died. I used to sit down and cry because my younger sisters wouldn't eat.
12
You
years
ask
old?
Sally about it. She was so devastated when my father died, saddled with all these girls. I don't know how she saved the money. She went to Korea. To this day, I wonder. But now that I'm older, I understand a little bit of how she must have felt. Saddled with 7 daughters, lost a husband, no means of support. And she left all the children with me and Eleanor and Mary, my other sister above me. We're working at the Holly Houses, right? Oh, it was terrible.
It sounds real tough, but
I know, so that's why
it
I
shows-
vowed I would never be poor. I studied so hard, I worked so hard.
That's great.
Then after that, I saved my money, tried to give my boys the best education they wanted. My experiences make me, I like to pride myself on my empathy and compassion. And I attribute that to the fact that I had the childhood I had.
and that experience.
Yeah, compassion, something. Because there's not very much that people experience today that I haven't experienced, I feel.
My name is Sally Oki is my Korean name, Kim is my maiden name, and Swanholm is my married name. And I was born July 17, 1929 in Honolulu. But in the Palama area, in those days it was absolute slums. We're very, very poor. I hate to sound like I'm playing the violins or something, but we were, and that's my earliest recollection, that we never had Christmas presents because my family couldn't afford it. There was really no Christmas presents. If you had food on the table, that was very much it.
That was a party.
Yeah. And oh, my dad, I don't remember too well because he died when I was all of 4. And but he was very handsome and kind, I think. But I really didn't know him because, as I said, I was only 4. And then my mother, this is very vivid for me because my mother was just so distraught after my dad died here, leaving 7 girls. So I don't know how she got the money, but she wanted to go back to Korea. So being the youngest, she was going to take me. You know, I was 4 years old because it was too hard on my sisters to take care of me. And it was many, many weeks to get to Korea in those days by boat. But here I was going with her, and I was very excited. And I have no idea what possessed me, but the day that she left by boat, I absolutely refused to go. I sat on the wharf, and I just cried and carried on in a tantrum and said, I'm not going. And she begged me and kind of spanked me, and I just wouldn't go, and so she couldn't take me. And then the strange story there is when she came back, my mother is very religious. When she came back after many weeks, and it took many days to get, to Korea, but when she came back, she said, Sally, in Korean, she said, what possessed you not to go? And I said, I don't know, I just didn't want to go, because she said that all the children, they died of dysentery on that boat.
Oh,
so she said, I would have died, along with them. So she kept asking me, what possessed, she's religious, she said, did the Lord come and tell you? I said, no, I just didn't want to go. I don't know why, Gary. I was 4, and Nodi, the one right above me, was 7. And then because we were so poor, Eleanor had to quit school at 6th grade and work at Hawai House, to earn some money. And then Anna was in charge of taking care of Nodi and I. And I have no idea what she was thinking, but we had spinach every single night, the canned spinach, because her idea was, if it's good for Papa, And he was always strong, with the muscle, so she said we had to eat it. And Nori and I hated it, so we cried and we said, we ain't going to eat it. And then Anna would start crying and said, you have to eat it. So in order to pacify her, Nori and I just forced it down and we ate it. So to this day, I hate canned spinach. But, Anna had this thing, every night we ate it. She just had this thing about, she had to keep us healthy, before my mother came back. But all my sisters, they had huge, huge responsibility. And, Gary, we fought and we had sibling rivalry and whatever you want to call it. But then, if there's anybody that needed something from somebody at any given time, they would be right there. We were this close.
That's what your sisters all been telling me.
Just we'd give the shirt off our back for the other person if they really need it. But my God, we fought a lot too.
Well, that's how you get close, right? When you were small, among your sisters, like that, what language did you speak among each other?
Oh, Pidgin.
Oh, Pidgin.
Pidgin.
Not Korean.
Well, kind of broken, So to this day, I speak very strange kind of Korean because I'd speak, Kanankil, I pick you up, I mix the 2 languages, and then so everybody thinks it's so funny and so cute, but then it's just habit. I don't even know I'm doing it. I said, Kanankil, now pick up my payo. We just do that. You just intertwine the languages, and but we spoke a lot of Pidgin too.
So you picked up the Pidgin, of course, from school.
Oh, yeah.
What kind of things did you do when you were a young child for fun? You know,
Oh, you mean we don't have money for toys, and we made our
you
own.
made your toys.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like what?
So we made bean bags, and then we just made our own toys.
Since you were the youngest, were you just most spoiled, or
Oh, absolutely.
in what way?
Oh, I don't know. I think I had more than they ever had, and then I was the best dressed in school. Can you believe me? Because Eleanor worked at Howley House for Rich Howleys, and there was a girl. I don't know what her. There were two girls in that rich family, and so any hand-me-downs they had, she said, "I'll take it for my kid sister," and they were all Shirley Temple dresses. Real cute kind. So. I was the best dressed kid in school.
Oh, that's it.
Well, see, Nori was the one right above me, and she was such a tomboy, and I was kind of like one of those that played with dolls and things like that, where personality-wise we're like black and white. But she was tomboy, and I don't like to do that kind of activities, but my mom had this thing that, because I was more on the shy side, and Nori was kind of the gang leader, and she would go off with a bunch of boys, and then my mother would be yelling at the porch, "Sally Tedigara," that means to bring me along. And then so she said, "Okay," and then she would say, "Okay, come." And then when we'd go off, about, maybe half a block away, she would turn around. I never forget that. "Beat it." "Beat it, go home." And so I'd be crying back home, and
How old were you?
Maybe about 6, 7. And then Nori was a storyteller too, because when my dad died, she said, "You and I have to be really, really good, Sally." And I said, "Oh, I am." And she said, "No, we're going to have to be really, really good to Ma." And I said, "Why?" And I said, "I'm good already." And she said, "If she dies," and this plagued me for years, and so I was extra good. She said, "If Mom dies, you and I are going to go to the orphanage." She scared me like this. And then so it got to the point where I was very, very, insecure. I had a very insecure beginning, because my dad was he was young, but I was only 4. And then, did you know my mother cried for about 2 days when I was born? She told me. And I said, "Oh, Ma, why do you tell me those things?" She said, "Oh, no, now you're my favorite." Of course, that's about a lot of BS, but she said, "Now you're my favorite." But she wanted a son so badly. And then when I came out and I was a girl, she said, she said, "Oh, go, Pugo," for 2 days. And I said, "Oh, Ma, why do you say that about?" She said, No, you're my favorite now," or something. But my name was given because she was kind of running out of names, and then somebody was in the 1st grade, and like they had Baby Sally and Jim and Jack, or those little primer books, and then here they had Baby Sally, so they said, "Oh, name her Sally." So that's how I got my name. That's what I was told.
So you went by Sally, and you never was called by your current name?
Oh, never,
Yeah.
never.
So what kind of cultural kind of practices did you learn from your mom, and that perhaps that you carry on to this day, and so like that?
You mean cultural type?
Yeah, Korean cultural.
Oh, I guess mostly the respect, you have for your elders, and then, a lot of respect for your elders. I was close to all of them, but I think as the years, probably when Nori was growing up, she was a tomboy. Naturally, we were kind of like, she's only 3 years older than I, so we kind of mingled together. But as I grew older, I think Eleanor, I'm the closest to her because she's kind of like a mother image. And she did so much for all of us. Yeah, all of us. When I was at the Kailani School, that was from 1st grade on, they had May Day program, and I was kind of like the star. Every May Day program, I sing, and so I sang from when I was 5.
Wow.
Very young, and then so as I grew up, naturally that was my interest. And I don't know if you know, or your mother maybe knew Fanny Nam. She used to be the choir director for Korean Christian Church many, many years ago.
My father did that.
Yeah, that then she kind of knew that I had a promising voice, and then she kind of encouraged me, and then Kumne Park encouraged me. You know, she was the choir director later. My mother would go to Tanimoshi meetings, you know, at night, because she would try to raise money to get further ahead and get a house. And I think that's where I got my music beginnings too, you know, because Mary Zarbaugh, I don't know if you know her, but her mom used to be she used to sing, had a real good Korean voice, you know, that kind of Korean pansori.
Pansori type,
Yeah. And whenever they had that Tanimoshi kind of meetings, after they were all through, she would sing. She had a marvelous Korean singing voice, and then she would sing that pansori thing, and I kind of liked it, you know, for a young kid, but I really was interested in, and then I told my mom, gee, I'd like to sing that kind of stuff. So my mother had a lot of records, you know, 78. Gosh, it's an album, maybe about 20 records.
Wow.
Old songs. And then so I got into music at the University Music Department.
Oh, with Richard Vines?
Yeah, Richard Vines group. But Jimmy Shigeta, do you know
Yeah,
him?
Jimmy Shigeta.
Yeah, we won some kind of a contest here and went to New York, and you know that Ted Mack show? Yeah, I sang an opera song and he sang Night and Day or something. But anyway, it was quite an experience. But then I came back, and so I went to the University of Hawaii, and I majored in voice. And Richard Vine thought, Sally, you have the potential and you should go to Italy and study. And so he was quite upset when I told him I was going to get married. I fell in love and I got married to my husband, you know, Carl. And so I quit school. But then I still sang. I've always sung at churches, and no matter, even on the mainland, I sang a lot. But I could have probably gone further and become pretty good, you know, if I had studied in Italy or on the mainland. But love came first. And I don't have any regrets. He's a wonderful man.
Were you also involved later on in Honolulu with some of those operas they had?
Oh, definitely, yeah. They had, we did Don Pasquale and Street Scene with the university. You know, they had an opera theater in the university, and so we did those. And I sang with the symphony. And
Well, really?
yeah.
The Honolulu Symphony?
With Barati, and then I sang at Central Union. I was a soloist there for 2 years. You know, that's a paid soloist job. But then it all kind of went to the wayside after I got married. I went to, and that's because of Anna, but it's kind of a cute story too, because I went to Kalakaua. You know, right after Kailani, you go to Kalakaua. And I went in the 7th grade there. And then Anna came home one day and she said, "You going to Stevenson?" And I said, "No, I'm not." She said, "You're going to Stevenson. It's an English standard school, much higher caliber than Kalakaua." So we had a fight, and I said, "I don't want to go there. All my friends are in Kalakaua." But, you know, she's the older sister. And she said, "You're going to take the test this Saturday." So off I went, you know, that Saturday to take the English standard. You had to pass the English standard test. And so she made me practice at home reading and then reading, you know, all these books. And then so anyway, I passed the test, and so off I went to Stevenson from 8th grade on. And I'm really glad, because they did have better schools in Stevenson, and then we went off to Roosevelt. When we were all growing up, it wasn't a matter of not going to church. It was an I just thought this was part of school, you know, like you go to school 5 days a week. Well, Sunday is church day, and you just go. We went to the Korean Christian, what is that, Congregational?
Congregational
Yeah.
Church.
She was always with Korean Christian. In those days, you know, the church was by that Korean care home now. And there's that field that used to be Japanese, Chinese, and Korean school, right? And before you hit Palama Settlement. But we lived further by Palama, where the fire station is, Tamashira Market.
Yeah.
And Gary, we walked back and forth there all the time, even in the evening, and nobody locked their door, or it was just different times.
So you did go to Korean school?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
6
For
years.
6 years. So your Korean must be terrific.
Very bad. Because we just learned Korean the strange way, not making fun, but ka gya ko gyo, we recited that every day, and then she would hold up a book, and she would say, "What is this?" And we'd say, "Check," and just simple things like that. So as far as reading, like the Korean hymnals and stuff, I'm very, very thankful. I can read perfectly. But then to comprehend the minister up there talking and comprehend the harmonies and trying to converse with them, no way, but I can read real well, because of this kagyo kogyo thing.
Do you remember the name of your Korean teacher back then?
We had Mrs. Kim, the one, what was his name? He was super, Alfred Kim's father. I think her name was Mary Kim.
Mary Kim.
And then was Kumne Park. She taught for a while. I don't know how my mother survived, Gary, with 7 girls like that, and no father. I think maybe we wouldn't have fared well if maybe we had boys, but because she was lucky she had 7 girls, I think it was a little bit easier. My mom always felt like in order to get out of being poor, that you just had to kind of go on and try to get an education. And then also she really had where the older ones took care of the younger. It just kind of goes down the line, and so we still have, bickering and everything. But I'm telling you, if somebody needed the shirt off their back, they'd be right there. It's just the kind of family we have. I love them all. To converse with them, no way, but I can